It's the middle of the night. You're wide awake. You check your phone. 3:11 a.m. You've been asleep for 4 hours, and now you're just staring. You tell yourself something is wrong with you. Insomnia, broken sleep, a problem to fix. Now take the phone away. Take away the clock, so you have no idea what time it is. Take away the light switch. Take away the word insomnia. For almost everyone who ever lived, waking up in the dark wasn't a problem. It was just the middle of the night. So how did humans actually sleep before any of this? The answer is nothing like your 8 hours, and it comes with a twist. Let's start with the story most people have heard. A historian named Roger Kirch spent years reading old diaries and letters. And the same two words kept showing up. First sleep, second sleep. Not a mistake, a routine. People went to bed, slept about 4 hours, and woke around midnight. Not in a panic, on purpose. For an hour or two they just lived. They talked, they prayed, they tended the fire. They visited neighbors, they made love, they lay in the dark and thought. Then they went back to sleep for another 4 hours. This wasn't rare. Kirch found hundreds of references to it. Kirch finds it even in Homer and Virgil, and in medieval doctors' advice. For a long time, this was just what a night looked like. And here's the part that sounds made up, but isn't. In the early 1990s, a scientist named Thomas Ware ran an experiment. He took 8 men and put them in darkness for 14 hours every night. No lamps, no screens, just a long, dark night, the way it used to be. For the first few weeks, they just caught up on sleep in one long block. But by week 4, something shifted on its own. Their sleep split in two. For hours, a calm hour awake, for more hours. Nobody told them to. Their bodies just did it. So that settles it, right? 2 sleeps is the natural human way. Except it doesn't. Here's the twist. In 2015, a sleep scientist named Jerome Siegel tried something different. Instead of a lab, he went to people who still live without electricity. The Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, the Tsimane in Bolivia. He put motion sensors on their wrists and measured how they really sleep. No diaries, no candles, just the raw data of a body in the dark. And they did not sleep in 2 shifts. They slept in one block, about 6.5 hours a night. For comparison, the average person today sleeps about 7. These people, living the closest thing to how humans always lived, sleep less than you. And no second sleep, no midnight hour, just down and up before dawn. So which is it, 2 sleeps or 1? Here's the honest answer. It's not settled. The best guess right now is that 2 sleeps wasn't ancient at all. It may have been a habit of long, cold European winters. When the night is 16 hours long, you can't sleep straight through it. So you break it in 2. Near the equator, where our story starts, nights are short. And there, people slept once and slept less. Before we go on, look at where they slept, because that's a story too. In Border Cave, South Africa, archaeologists found the oldest bed on Earth, 200,000 years old. It was grass, gathered and laid down in a thick, soft pad. But here's the clever part. The grass was laid on a layer of ash. Ash isn't just leftover fire. Ticks and fleas can't crawl through it. 200,000 years ago, someone worked out a bug-proof mattress. And on top of the grass, they laid leaves from the camphor tree. Camphor keeps insects away. It's still in bug spray today. A clean, soft, insect-proof bed made before our species had left Africa. Now for the part that changes how you see your own family. Nobody in these groups slept alone, ever. Sleeping together meant warmth. It meant safety. A single person asleep in the open was a person about to die. So they slept in a pile, families together, bodies touching. And in 2017, researchers measured something strange about that pile. They tracked the Hadza for 20 days, who was asleep, minute by minute. And across all 20 days, do you know how long everyone was asleep at once? 18 minutes, total. For 20 days and nights, there were only 18 minutes where nobody was awake. 99.8% of the time, at least one person had their eyes open. A camp full of sleeping people was almost never fully asleep. And here's the beautiful part. Nobody was on guard duty. No one drew a shift. No one was told to stay up. It happened by itself, because of age. The old people went to bed early and woke in the dark before dawn. The young people stayed up late and slept in. Different ages, different clocks, and the gaps never lined up. So at almost any hour, somebody's eyes were open over the ones who slept. This is the sentinel, and evolution didn't design it. It just fell out of a family. So think about your own grandfather, up at 5 in the morning, wide awake. He isn't broken. He's the early shift. And the teenager who can't fall asleep until 2 in the morning? Not lazy, the late shift. Two ends of the same watch, keeping a camp safe that no longer exists. So what happened? Why do we sleep in one hard 8-hour block now? The same thing that changed almost everything. Light. Before electric light, the dark set the rules. You slept when it came. Then the bulb arrived, and the night got shorter and shorter. We pushed sleep into one tight block so we could work a fixed day. The 8-hour night is an ancient wisdom. It's a factory schedule. And the biggest thing we lost wasn't a second sleep. It was the company. Your ancestors were almost never awake in the dark alone. There was always someone by the fire, someone breathing next to you. You could close your eyes in a world full of predators for one reason. Someone you loved was keeping theirs open. That's what sleep was, not 8 private hours, a thing you did together. So tonight, when you wake at 3 and stare at the ceiling, you're not broken and nothing has gone wrong. You're doing something almost every human who ever lived has done. Waking in the night was never the problem. Being alone in it is the only part that's new. If you want to know how people handled everything else before the comforts we take for granted, there's a whole channel of this. The next one is right here.